Alright, so after doing 2 rather successful trips to Japan, if I do say so myself, there are actually 11 things I wish I knew before going. I spent so long before my trip to Japan. This was like a dream trip of mine. I've always wanted to go there. And the first time I ever went, I was so paralysed with booking, what to do, what things to do. I spent hours and hours watching YouTube videos and I still wasn't prepared fully when I landed in Japan. I made a list of 11 things that I wish I knew before going to Japan. So maybe this will help you if you're booking your trip, or maybe you're just curious about what things I wish I knew before going. Let's get into it, shall we? This tip is actually one that was from my recent trip to Japan, my second trip, which was this year, the new year. And that is, I wish I filled in the new QR code customs form thingy that you need to hand into Japan. So when you enter Japan, the first time I ever went, you got given this little paper customs entry form that you had to fill in on the plane or when you landed in Japan, and you filled all the details in: what hotel you're staying at, your passport number, your name, your traveller, how many weeks you're going to stay there, and you hand that into the customs when you arrive in Japan. But when I arrived earlier this year, they actually had introduced this new QR system, and this would have saved a lot of time and hassle and filling in the paper forms when we got to the airport, because we didn't actually get the paper slips on the flight this time. The first time we arrived, the air hostesses handed out these paper slips, and if you don't get the paper slips on the plane, when we landed, you could also just pick the paper slips up before you went through customs. They have now set up this new QR code thingy. I haven't used this yet, but apparently this is much more smoother and easier, and you can fill this in before your trip to Japan. And also, can I just say, the lines that you have to fill in on the paper are so small. You have to have like the tiniest fairy writing ever. The second one is, I wish I never got a Wi-Fi box and I used an eSIM instead. So let me tell you a story about this. Our first trip to Japan, I had never used an eSIM before, and I was googling ways to get signal because my phone doesn't allow me to have international data for free, and we were there just short of a month for our first trip. So I came upon like loads of forums, loads of vlogs saying they have these Wi-Fi boxes at the airports. I am not an overly organised planner. I am kind of a winger it type of person, but I knew I needed data and I didn't just want to land in the country. However, I did just land in the country and I didn't even plan my Wi-Fi box. Luckily though, when we landed in Haneda Airport, there was a few stalls selling these Wi-Fi boxes. So we literally rented one for the month. It was relatively cheap. I think it was like 20 or 30 pounds. And that gave us this Wi-Fi box, which meant me and my husband could connect to this Wi-Fi box. I could also use it for my laptop and working on the road, which was really, really handy for me. However, there was one problem with this. If we split up, which ended up happening, we would get lost and one of us would be without data. So whoever didn't have the Wi-Fi box, even though the Wi-Fi box worked absolutely tremendously, by the way, it was super, super fast, super, super easy. As soon as one of us was away, one of us didn't have data. And this proved to be an absolute nightmare when we were heading to Tokyo Disney. We actually had a whole issue with that. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Basically, we were in I think it was either Shinjuku or Tokyo Station, and my bag dropped, my suitcase, and we were like lugging all of our suitcases, and I had my case and my big suitcase because we were transferring to a Disney hotel in Miami Bay. At the time, Dean didn't see me dropping my case, and the stations can be so busy and bustling. You just got your blinkers on and you just going where you're going. So you're following the signs to the station, the next station that you're going to. Anyway, Dean got the numbers, the letters mixed up on the line we were meant to go to. So rather than the KO line, I think he was going to something else line. And he tapped his Passmore Suica card, which I'll talk to you in a bit about that, his travel card, into the gates, walked into the gate, and then looked back and realised I was nowhere to be seen. I didn't see him walking into these gates because I headed for the proper gates, and I was like, oh, I couldn't find Dean anywhere in the scene of people. I'd literally only turned around for like a second or two, and Dean thought I was right behind him at this point. He just assumed I was behind him because we normally are, we're just like in the zone. And the sea of people made us not be able to see each other. So we thought, well, we're both going to the same gate. We'll see each other at the gate, at the entrance. So then I headed off further to the gate, which was a lot further away than where Dean was, and he was nowhere to be seen. And I tapped into the gate ready to go to Miami Bay area. I couldn't find Dean. He wasn't at the gate, he wasn't anywhere. I went to try and ring him, and guess what? He had no data because I had the Wi-Fi box. And I was stood there for about 15-20 minutes thinking, what are we gonna do? I've lost Dean, I don't know where he is. What are we, like literally, what are we gonna do? At this point, I had booked all the hotels and everything, and Dean didn't actually know the name of the hotel. And he had no data to find out where to go, no data to connect to me. Eventually, he did manage to connect to the Wi-Fi in the station. Thank goodness there was Wi-Fi in the station. He managed to ring me after like 15-20 minutes of me flapping about. At this point, I just stood by the gate with my suitcases thinking, I don't know what to do. At this point, I can either try and walk around this subway station, which is full of people, or I just give in. And I literally just give in, and then luckily he rang me. I tried ringing over and over again. This would have been resolved if we just had an eSIM. The second time we went to Japan, we both just got an eSIM. There's several different eSIMs you can get. It is slightly more expensive because obviously you have to pay for the two of you, but it means you can both split off, meet back up, or if you accidentally split off, you can find each other without too much stress. And speaking of eSIMs, my third tip I wish I knew before going to Japan is making sure my eSIM was actually set up properly before leaving the airport. We had a nightmare coming out of Tokyo. The last thing you want after a very, very long flight from the UK, which is where I'm from, and your eyeballs are twitching and you're pretty tired and run down, you just want to get to your hotel. The last thing you want to be doing is getting lost in Tokyo, which is exactly what happened to me and Dean. Because we had connected to Haneda Airport, it had automatically connected to the Wi-Fi. We set up, or we thought we set up our eSIM correctly before leaving the airport, and prior to that, because we had the Wi-Fi box, we didn't have this issue before. So we just assumed we were connected to mobile data at this point because we thought we had switched the primary SIM and the eSIM around properly. However, we didn't. So we got out of the subway station because I knew what subway line we had to get out of to go to our hotel. We got out, no data. Neither of us had any data, and we were like, what are we going to do? Why isn't the eSIM working? We were blaming the eSIM. We thought the eSIM was broke, and we were stood for about 15 minutes on the street corner trying to figure it out, and we had just not set our eSIM up properly in the airport. So it meant we didn't have any data for a while. So just make sure it's set up, because if you rely on the Google Maps, which is what I use to kind of get around on all the trains and everything, if your internet cuts out and you don't remember, you're going to be buggered. We got out, didn't know where to go, couldn't find our hotel, managed to stand there on the street corner and set up our eSIMs properly this time, and then we finally figured it out. We finally did it, and we found our way to our hotel. The fourth thing I wish I knew is to load your Passmo or Suica card before you leave the airport as well. These are a way to get around on the trains. To get physical cards, they all have the booths at the airports, at the train stations. They have the booths where you can go and actually get a card and load it and stuff. However, we just added ours to our Apple Wallet, and in fact the first time we ever arrived in Haneda Airport, my Apple phone actually popped up first and said add a Passmo or travel card to your wallet, and asked me a question, and I was like, oh, I've heard of Suica, I've heard of Passmo through watching other videos. So I literally just went onto the travel wallet, I added it to wallet. I actually still have my Passmo card on my, I've still got 131 yen on my travel card. I just added it to my wallet. You can load this up as you go, then you can tap out and get the subway line to your hotel from the airports. So load up on your travel cards. I would say though, be wary. It is very hard to, if at all, I actually don't know if you can, take the money back out of those travel cards. So if you come into the end of the trip, I would say don't overload your card with money, because then you'll be stuck with loads of money stuck on your travel card and you won't know what to do with it. It'll just be sat there unless you're coming back on another trip. So, and you can also use these cards as well in convenies and in vending machines as well. So you can use these at the vending machines everywhere, which is really, really handy. But do be warned that some travel cards don't work in certain areas of Japan, so you may need to change the travel card that you have. I think this was the case in Nagano, but I can't remember now, so sorry, don't take my word for it. The fifth thing I wish I knew before going to Japan is you have to book so far in advance if you want to go into certain things. There's still things that we have not managed to visit that we desperately want to visit, and that's like things like Ghibli Park, the Pokemon Cafe. Literally impossible nearly to get a booking for that. If you want to do these things and these are non-negotiable for you, you need to figure out the Japanese booking system on the website, because sometimes they release it on a certain date at a certain time and they sell out like that. I'm not kidding. We still haven't managed to get Pokemon Cafe or Ghibli Park. I have to be honest, stuff like that really gets on my nerves and I hate looking at stuff like that. However, the way I managed to get around Japan, which has been a lifesaver actually not only for Japan but also Paris as well, was using Klook. So I have used Klook for such a long time, and that is a lifesaver for someone like me who hates booking things, because I can keep it all in one place. They've actually partnered on this video with me and I'm absolutely buzzing about it, because honestly my Japan trips wouldn't be the same without this app. Klook is a travel booking app and they have so many things from around the world you can go on. You can see, actually, I put on screen all the bookings I've actually made over the years using Klook. Absolutely brilliant. I've also booked Disneyland Paris using Klook, but things like Tokyo Disney, Tokyo Disney Sea, you can also book Shinkansens, JR Rail, travel passes. In fact, the last time we went, we stayed in Ueno and we noticed signs everywhere saying Hello Kitty exhibition, and I love Hello Kitty. If anyone doesn't know, I'm an artist and illustrator, and a lot of my art is based off my love for Japanese pop culture mixed with my English heritage. So when I seen that there was a Hello Kitty exhibition, I was like, oh my gosh, how do we go to it? But I didn't know how we were going to book tickets. I went onto Klook. Lo and behold, the Hello Kitty exhibition was there. So I just booked it on Klook. The prices also can't be beaten and it's absolutely fantastic. They have so many different flash sales and deals. In fact, speaking of eSIMs earlier, this time when I went to Japan, I actually got given with Klook, with my booking with Tokyo Disney, I got a free eSIM, Tokyo eSIM. So how good's that? So yeah, I highly recommend, if you're going to Japan, or even if you're going to like Disneyland Paris or anywhere, get Klook. It is a lifesaver for people like me. It had all my bookings in one place. I booked Sanrio Puro Land. I booked all my Tokyo Disney and Tokyo Disney Sea tickets with Klook. And in fact, I'm going to tell you a story about one thing that I actually did. I booked Tokyo Disney on the wrong day, and I got to the gate and went to tap into the park of Tokyo Disney Sea, and this was our first time ever exploring Tokyo Disney Sea, and my QR code wasn't working. A lovely Japanese cast member was like, I'm so sorry, but this is the wrong date. And I was like, oh my goodness, what an idiot. Luckily though, I had Klook, and I like pulled up to the side and I made sure there was any other tickets on that day, and there was, luckily, because we travelled in June and it was pretty off-peak in the Disney parks. I managed to book really quickly a Disney park ticket, went to tap in again, and I'd booked the wrong Disney park. I can't believe it. I booked Tokyo Disneyland Resort instead of Tokyo Disney Sea, so don't be an idiot like me. But it was still handy because I got to go to Tokyo Disneyland that day because we were already in that area. So I had 2 days in Tokyo Disneyland, and then because of Klook, I managed to come back later in the trip because we were there just short of a month. I came back later in the trip and I booked Tokyo Disney Sea. So that was an absolute lifesaver. So if you want something where everything is all in one, you can even book Tokyo Disney Skytree, even your rail, your Shinkansens, your travel, you can book it all in there and have it just all in one nice, easy app, and you don't have to navigate the Japanese websites or booking systems where the auto-translate might not be the best. If you've not got Klook and you're going to Japan, definitely get it. If you guys would like to try Klook out, use my code KatherineK. New users will get a 10% discount on the first order, and existing users a 3% discount. I will leave a link in the description for you guys to check out. I don't know what I would have done without it, if I'm being totally honest. So a huge thank you to Klook for partnering up with this video. The next thing isn't necessarily what I wish I knew before going to Japan, but something that I actually want to share with you guys, and that is what season to go fall when you go to Japan. The most common season for everyone to go to Japan is cherry blossom season. This is literally the thing that is sold to on all the magazines and all the travel brochures. Even back in the old 90s film, I'm literally watching like Michael Palin's 80s and 90s travel shows at the minute. I love it. But it's always like cherry blossom season. The second most popular time to go is during autumn with the autumn foliage. These two are both peak seasons. Now, cherry blossom season, not only is it popular for international tourists, it's also extremely popular for Japanese tourists as well. But these two times are particularly the most beautiful and most popular times to go. When I first booked Japan, I wasn't particularly bothered about going when it was very high tourist season, and I actually went during a time that isn't as well known about, but actually ended up being one of the best times ever. In fact, I've never been during the two peak seasons. I've never been during cherry blossom or autumn, but I do want to go there next time, and that was June. So May and June is actually kind of beginning of rainy season, June is, in the summer, but it's also hydrangea season, and it's so beautiful. I was so blown away. There's these blue hydrangeas in full bloom in all across Japan, and it was absolutely stunning, specifically in Kyoto. The wall was just full of these beautiful, big, chunky blue hydrangeas. I was so inspired, in fact, that I ended up doing my own product collection for my small business with Katnipp, because I was literally so inspired by this season. And it also made it kind of magical. There were rainy days throughout it, but it made it more mystical and magical. I can specifically remember in Nagano, there was a really rainy night. It was chucking down. It was one of my favourite nights. We were staying in a traditional Japanese ryokan at the time, and we went to walk to 7-Eleven to get some food, and I remember getting beef curry. And Nagano is in the beautiful mountains of Japan, and it had this 7-Eleven was just there, and in the background was just the mountains, and it was so beautiful and stunning. And it was raining. I had my umbrella out, and it was just tapping on my umbrella, and the cars were going by. You could hear the water under the wheels and the rain bouncing and tapping on everything, and it was just the most magical, mystical experience. And we took our beef curry in our plastic bags, and we went back to the ryokan and put our traditional robes on. We had a hot fresh green tea that the family owners of the ryokan had put into our room with some little Japanese sweets, and we sat there with the windows open listening to this rain really chucking it down and taking in the ryokan. And honestly, it was so magical and beautiful. So don't let the rain put you off. If you are going during the start of rainy season, obviously take some waterproofs and stuff. I think the end of May to June is extremely underrated. I want to do all seasons in Japan, including summer. I want to do the peak of summer as well. The next thing I wish I knew is that staying outside of Tokyo be considerably cheaper. This is pretty obvious, but I didn't actually realise how dramatic the price difference is. And I'm glad we did manage to move around. The first time we went, we moved around quite a lot of places. We did like the Golden Triangle, as they call it, I think it's called. The value for money we got outside of Tokyo was amazing. If you are going to Japan for the first time, I would say split up your trip a little bit if you can, and move around a little bit. Speaking of moving around, the next thing I wish I knew and utilised the first time I went to Japan was the internal luggage transportation systems. We got so many comments about this when we first went to Japan, because we traipsed our heavy suitcases and laptop around the whole of Japan, and it was a nightmare. There was so many times we couldn't find the lift at some of the busy stations, and we had to carry up. In fact, Dean used to carry up both suitcases really heavy, full of all our merch and stuff we'd collected along the way. We traipsed it around everywhere. And the second time we went, after listening to you guys, actually, we decided to actually use this. So this is basically a system within Japan where your hotel will deliver your bags to the next hotel you're staying at. It's so efficient, it worked so well, and we were actually getting an internal flight to Sapporo at the time, and I didn't want to take my massive suitcase to Sapporo, so I had a cabin bag and a big suitcase. So what I did was I actually packed up my cabin case and I sent my big bag to the place I was coming back to in Tokyo, and they actually stored it in the hotel for 3 days. I paid like a bit extra for the storage per day, and I flew out to Sapporo with just a cabin case and flew back, and when I got to my new hotel in Ueno, our suitcases were there already, all tagged up. The guy came, wheeled them out as soon as we handed our passport. Everything was so efficient, so amazing, and so much easier than dragging things around the whole of Japan and getting a proper sweat on. The next thing I wish I knew was to carry cash. Now, I actually have to be honest, I already knew about this tip from what I'd heard from other people. There's still quite a lot of places in Japan that don't accept card. It's getting much better now from what I've heard. We haven't really had that much of an issue in Tokyo or any of the big cities paying card. We use our Pasmo at like 7-Eleven and stuff like that. But if you want to go to like these more independent shops or maybe even stalls, like food stalls for example, we did notice that it was cash only and they only accept cash. So do take some Japanese yen with you when you go. It's very, very handy. You don't have to worry too much, I don't think, about arriving in Japan without any cash, because actually the second time we went, we had no Japanese yen when we landed. And I'm not gonna lie guys, I do that a lot when I go to a different country. I don't particularly get cash before I leave. I withdraw it when I'm in the country, and it's pretty easy to withdraw using an international bank card, or at least it was for us. We went to 7-Elevens to withdraw and used their international ATM machines that they have there. The next thing I wish I knew was that it is so hard to find rubbish bins anywhere in Tokyo or Japan in general, which is so surprising because the streets are so clean compared to other cities in the world, despite not having hardly any rubbish bins anywhere. The common thing to do is actually to take your rubbish with you and dispose of it when you get back home or to your hotel. So I wish I kept some little bags inside of my bag to dispose of it. So Dean had a backpack with him a lot, and I wish I took like little bags to crush up my rubbish and like zip it up. Maybe some Ziploc, like large Ziploc bags would have been good, because there was a few times that we had like discarded food, leftover food, and we couldn't eat it all and we had to smush it in Dean's bag without like a rubbish bag. It was kind of gross, and then it'd go warm in the warm weather and stuff and smell out his bag as soon as you zipped it up, and you got like a waft of like warm food. So I wish I had like some Ziploc bags inside my bag so that I could dispose of like my rubbish and keep it all neatly within a bin inside my backpack, and then I would dispose of it when I got to my hotel room. That's one thing I wish I knew. The last thing I wish I knew before going in is not to overbook myself and overextend my itinerary. There is nothing worse than feeling so tired and run down and you're like, no, but we've got to go here, we've got to go there, I've paid for this, I've paid for that, You'll end up burning yourself out, and you don't want to end up irritable on this beautiful trip. You want to give yourself some breathing room, have a couple of days. This is what we did the second time we went to Japan. We gave ourselves some breathing space to like, today's a totally free day, and I'm so glad we did that because we ended up going to the Hello Kitty Museum. Like I say, we had no plans for that day. We were just going to walk around, explore the area. In fact, we had a few days like that. We ended up going to the Lost Bar, which is Charlotte and Chris's bar, which was so fun. I ended up getting way too drunk that day. So give yourself some free days, because actually those are some of the best days, because you just wing it and you do things, or you just go exploring and go, ooh, should we go try that ramen bar, should we go there, should we look here? And I definitely am a little bit more of a traveller like that anyway. I tend to land in a country and be like, right, what should we do? In Japan there was certain things that I definitely knew I wanted to do. So I wanted to go to Tokyo Disney, I wanted to go to Puroland the second time around and stuff like that. But other than that, I'm pretty laid back, and I would say do not overpack your itinerary, because the magic happens actually when you give yourself breathing room to explore and take it all in. That's what you're there for. There's no rush to get from one thing to another. Just take it all in. Some of the best moments are just from us walking around, trying a random piece of Wagyu beef off the side, or trying a taiyaki in Osaka and dawdling around, maybe hopping into the shops or going to the arcades. That is one of like the best things. So don't overextend yourself and just have fun. Take it all in. Remember to take it all in. Don't stress yourself out if you don't get the travel stuff done or the Instagram photos. Just have fun, live in the moment, breathe, be like, oh my gosh, I'm in Japan, this is epic, and enjoy your trips. I try and do that on every trip that I do, not only Japan but anywhere in the world. I hope you found this fun. Let me know what you thought of this different type of video on this channel. Let me know if you want me to do more, because I've actually got more things and tips that I wish I knew, and also just tips in general. So let me know if you want to hear or see more of these type of videos. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to watch our Japanese adventure, we've got 2 big series on this channel, and we'll hoping to do many more, and we're also looking at going sooner rather than later, so we'll see how that goes for us. If you like Japanese pop culture in general, we do lots of fun stuff here on the channel anyway, because I love Japanese pop culture and I end up going to things like the Hello Kitty cafe. Actually tomorrow I'm going to this Ghibli store that's opened up in York, so I tend to do a lot of Japanese English crossovers on this channel because it's something I love. I love gaming, manga, anime, English culture as well, all blended in, so if you want to stick around for that. We also do lots of fun and wholesome weekly travel and lifestyle videos. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, I'll see you in the next one. Alright then. Thanks so much for watching. I love you.